Good afternoon. My name is Marla Teolia. My partner over here is Ryan Moore. And together we are Kale-licious. Kale-licious is a specialty food company that focuses on the gluten-free consumer. Our mission is to provide our customers with a premium whole foods experience that starts with innovative products using high-quality ingredients. Currently, we have two product lines. We have kale chips and kale pestos. So who knows, has anybody tried kale in here? Raise your hands. All right, okay, so we have some kale converts in here. Our kale chips and kale pestos are gluten-free, dairy-free, and net-free. And they are incredibly delicious and highly nutritious because kale is one of the most nutritious vegetables on the planet. We do not put any heat on our products. They do not go in the oven, they do not get fried. Instead, our kale chips are seasoned with a sauce that's made with seeds and vegetables that tastes shockingly like cheddar cheese, but it's totally dairy-free and nut-free. It's massaged onto the kale and then put in dehydrators at low temperatures. They stay there for 15 to 18 hours, and what comes out is a light and crispy chip that's actually just like eating a raw vegetable. Because since you are not putting it to heat, you actually have all the nutrients pretty much intact. So it's a great way for people to get more dark leafy greens in their diet, more vegetables, and yet it's not as if you're just chomping on a kale stick. Our pesto is also nut-free and dairy-free. So when you think of pesto, you think of pine nuts and Romano cheese and Parmesan cheese. While for some people that sounds yummy and delicious, for other people that's like, oh my God, I'm about to get so sick because I can't eat dairy or I can't eat nuts. What we have done is we've taken those two ingredients out and we've used raw organic sunflower seeds and replaced the basil with kale. So it's a way to kind of power up your pesto, and it tastes shockingly like cheese. People are always surprised if there's no cheese in our products. We are also, in terms of trying to create a premium experience for our consumers, we're also really sustainably oriented. And so our sourcing is very important to us. We use local and organic ingredients. We also use eco-packaging. And in addition, we're creating partnerships with organizations that work to combat hunger. And that is part of our business ethos as well. So why gluten-free, right? People think it's a fad. Well, gluten-free is pretty much here to stay. Market research shows that these statistics are for 2012. The gluten-free food market last year posted approximately $7 billion worth of sales. And when you start breaking that down, the gluten-free snack segment that the kale chips are a part of, those posted $0.4 billion. The gourmet sauces and dips posted $0.7 million, and that's where our pestos would fall under. It's important to note that over the past 2 years, there's been a 27% increase in gluten-free sales pretty much across segments. And that tells us that the gluten-free consumer, even in a recession, is much less price sensitive than other consumers. And typically, because they are making these decisions because they actually have to, their health depends on it. And our capture target rate is less than 0.5% by 2015. So this feels incredibly attainable and doable for us. In terms of the market size, when you look at overall who is gluten-free, the numbers vary. However, and there's a spectrum, right? There's people who are gluten intolerant. That's where I fall under, and how my family, we had to create these products so we could actually eat more vegetables that were seasoned well but didn't have gluten in them. Those are at 31.1 million. Now, those on the other side of the spectrum is people who suffer from celiac disease. And those are people with severe, it's an autoimmune disease, it's a severe gluten allergy, and they absolutely really have to eat gluten-free or else their health really deteriorates. And then you have another 0.3 million who are allergic to wheat, because gluten is actually a protein that's found in various grains, such as oats, rye, and wheat. So it's approximately more than 30 million Americans who seek gluten-free. And when you start breaking that down in terms of our target market, research has shown that women ages 25 to 34 are the ones that have the highest sensitivity in terms of being gluten intolerant. And their percentage is about 14% of the population. In 2009, that segment number is about 2.8 million. And this dovetails nicely into our own findings because we did have test market experience. And we found that the people who are buying our products were white Caucasian women, ages 25 to 45. They were health conscious or health seekers, typically mothers, and someone had an allergy in their household. So these were our primary drivers. In terms of the target market results, it was overwhelmingly positive. People constantly told us we were the best chips they'd ever tried. They were shocked that there was no basil in this pesto, there's no cheese in this pesto. They were shocked at the innovativeness of kale pesto and absolutely loved it because it was another way to eat more green vegetables. So here are two responses from people. These are unsolicited emails. People would constantly send us emails after they had tested our products. This first one, woman is Betty. She lives in California. She'd come to New York and had tried our products. She really loved our products, as did her husband, and wanted us to ship them to California. We got that from people in Oregon. We got them from people in Arizona. And we were lucky in that we were testing it in this farmer's market that was a tourist area, and the people were constantly coming from all over the country. And she proceeded to give us some store names. I mean, people really want us to have our products in their local stores. The second woman, Catherine, she loved our pesto. And what's incredibly important to me about this email is that she says she ate it with whole wheat linguine, which means that she's not gluten-free. She just actually really loved our products because she's eating gluten. This really shows that there's potential for us to become a gourmet crossover brand for the health seekers, because people understand that you need to eat more raw vegetables, that is actually something really good to do with your health. So it's a lot, you kind of get sick of salads all the time. So we present ways that people can eat vegetables as snacks and eat it with dinner as a sauce that tastes absolutely delicious. So what makes our product different, right, from other products? There are other kale chips in the market. When we tested our products, people were overwhelmingly, the response was, oh my God, these are the best kale chips we've ever tried. So superior taste in our recipe profile was definitely one of them, as well with the kale pesto. Many times kale pesto was the first time that people had actually had a pesto that was made with kale, and they loved it. And this leads to our crunch factor. The superior taste and crunch factor are two things that work together, and that deals with our processing. We do not cut corners with our processing. With the kale chips, as I said, they actually go into dehydrators, and they're there for a significant amount of time. What we have found is other stores are cutting corners, or other companies are cutting corners by not processing as long and putting the chips in bags with desiccants, thinking it's going to take the last 4 or 5 hours they can get some of the moisture pulled out from a desiccant. Well, what happens typically is that when you open those bags, number one, I've tasted many a rancid kale chip, or they're just not as crispy. And with ours, because we're also not using cashews, which most other companies will use cashews, it's a really light taste. So it's crunchy, and it's like, oh my God, like it's that crunch factor late at night, and people feel really good about being able to eat a bag of kale chips while watching TV as opposed to like a bag of Lay's. In terms of our kale pesto, we're the first nut-free and dairy-free kale pesto. There are 2 kale pestos that we have seen. One is either nut-free or one is dairy-free. Nobody is a complete free-from product, and that's what we're looking towards. This free-from is a market term, which means free from all of the major allergens. Many times you will find that our competitors cannot say that. They might have one recipe that's nut-free. They might have another recipe that's dairy-free. It's very rare that they're combining them. And we are, again, a nut-free kale chip. There's only one other kale chip on the market that is doing that, and they came out after we had tested our market in New York. We also have a socially conscious business model, and that was really interesting for us because people really responded to the way in which we were positioning our product during the test market. They were responding to the fact that we had created partnerships with farmers, that they wanted to really feel that we were connected from the farm to the package, and that was very important to them, and to us actually as a business. In terms of our competition, they do have some strengths in terms of sourcing. You'll see some of them have organic, some are nut-free. With the kale pesto, some are dairy-free, but one is shelf-stable, and that's not necessarily seen as a totally fresh product. Some of the pestos here are dairy-free. However, the shortcomings is that nobody is a free-from product. And what happens is that, for example, Rhythm Chips, they were based in Austin. I felt they were one of our main competitors. However, they've moved to Dallas and have to use a co-packer, and their quality has completely gone south. And we're really seeing their taste profile is totally different. And with all of these, the likelihood of cross-contamination is really high. So when you're dealing with somebody with a nut allergy, that's pretty severe, because nut allergies, the oils, it's harder to get that equipment clean. And I know we have family members, my nephew, we cannot feed him things that actually say made with tree nuts, shared equipment, because he can really kind of go into shock with that. So what we are doing then is we're addressing this. Our goal is to have our own facility that is a complete free from it facility, and it'll give the marketplace the confidence that we are processing in a way with integrity and that they can be safe eating our products. And we found that mothers with young kids, the fact that our products did not have nuts was very significant for them, because typically they want their kids to eat vegetables, and little kids at that age will pretty much eat anything that you give them. Under 2 years old, you really shouldn't give them nuts. So that was very important for the mothers in our test market. So our team, I'm Marla, and I will be operating as a CEO. I have industry knowledge and experience from product development as well up to point of sale. I also have extensive sales and marketing experience. And Ryan, he is our CFO, and he's going to be operating as our operations manager. He's currently manager of FP&A at FlexJet, and he has significant experience in manufacturing and supply chain management, as well as a former working capital manager. So we feel like we bring a really great blend of expertise and of experience. We both are very committed and have a drive to really achieve results. So I'm going to hand it over to Ryan. He's going to give you our sales and financial projections.
Thank you, Marla. So I'd like to walk you guys through our sales projections associated with our Kale products. First thing, once we're able to penetrate in a location, we made an assumption from a bottoms-up approach that we'd be able to sell 1 case of our product in the first 6 months of that being located at that facility. After establishing a presence in that facility or that store, we'd be able to turn 2 cases of product per week. That's kind of our base assumption once we're able to obtain of being in the store. Our goals in the first year is to get in 5 new locations per month, with focusing right here in the Dallas area first and spreading into our other Texas regions and moving forward. In year 2, with some of our initial sales force deployment, we're planning to expand on the coast. The idea is to work from the coast in. And so in year 3, with our 9 sales folks, we're hoping to get into 470 stores by the end of year 3 by working at basically coast to coast in centrally the Midwest. All right, so now I'd like to walk through is our financial projection summary. On the first piece here, we just talked about the revenue side. What you're seeing on the top line on each side for the chips and the pestos, you're seeing actual units. So when we talk about a case, there's 12 units per case in our product. Next thing I'd like to talk about is our cost of goods sold. We have 2 key components of our cost. We always have the raw material of the products, all the organic, all the great things Marla was telling you about. We also have our direct labor and distribution costs that we're talking about. In year 1, you can see the price per unit. We're starting to see an increase, primarily driven by our volume leverage we're able to obtain in the facility. So you can actually see with our working capital balance increasing there at the bottom, and you can actually see we're actually starting to put more throughput through our original facility. On the SG&A side, you can see some massive growth in SG&A, and I'm sure that's concerning for any investor. However, the majority of the SG&A expense is driven by our marketing program, which you'll see by year 3, it's only 15% of our total sales, but it does make up over 50%, or just under 50% of our SG&A. The capital requirements for Kale-licious. In the first year, to get the initial facility up and running, pay for the initial industry and manufacturing folks, that's where that's planning and headed, and then as well as building the initial purchasing of inventory. In year 2, we require an additional investment, and that's primarily related to the inventory ramp up that we're expecting in year 3. On the bottom there, you can see our working capital. In the year 1, we basically get just over 1 turn of our inventory. In year 3, we're attaining around 6.8 turns. So our goal by year 5 is to achieve 9 turns, which would be kind of the gold standard. And the last thing I kind of want to touch on here is that on the initial return of that investment, we're projecting 40% by year 5, with that really beginning in year 3. And with that, I'd like to extend to any of you here on the front row any questions for Marla or myself.
Hello. Okay. So yes, I owned an artist management company for 7 years. So from 1999 to 2006, I owned an artist management company, and I could sell chickens and feathers. So really, that was a lot of sales, forest management for 7 years.
Are there any FDA sponsors?
I mean, there are definitely licenses. In New York, we had a facility, it was actually on our property, a separate commercial facility. And you do have to do, in New York, it's called a labor and farmers, ag and farm market you have to do. Out here in Texas, you need to do that as well. It's like a health certification. So there's different ways in which we can do this. This is definitely like when we look at the financials, that's our ideal situation of having our own facility. There's a juice company that we can also partner with who has a facility down by Oak Lawn, and it's already certified.
So are you selling this product?
No, we're not selling this product now. We really did a test market last year in New York, and we were really a success there. We have actually, I did bring a lot of samples to stores out here, and we definitely have a lot of like local stores like a Bolsa. As of yesterday, we had the I Love Yogurt down the way. They actually own cafes, and he works with a partner who has a health stand that they basically take to cafes all over the Metroplex that has snacks, and his family does gluten-free cookies. So he's like, oh, we can totally do the partnership for the chips and actually have them in cafes, little stations and cafes all over the Metroplex. So one of the things we didn't get a chance to talk about is that we definitely are hitting traditional markets, like the smaller health food stores or farmers markets. But there also is a lifestyle choice as well for a lot of our consumers, and so we want to hit the cafes. There's yoga studios that would love these chips. There's outdoor recreation stores that, like our kale chips, are a dehydrated product. You can take those camping with you. They're shelf stable. Once you don't open them, they're good for 6 months to a year. So there's lots of other ways that we can also penetrate the market.
So you said they're shelf-stable because you're dehydrating it?
Yes.
My question.
Yeah. So
Same with the pesto?
No, the kale pesto is a fresh product, and those are going to go towards a food scientist to give us the exact date that they would need to be refrigerated. From my own testing, it's approximately a month to 6 weeks that it can be fine in your refrigerator, although it never really lasts that long, but we have tested that. The dehydrated product, because you've taken every ounce of liquid out, it is shelf-stable for a year. And that was actually tested from New York State.
That's going to be pretty expensive because of the time it takes to dehydrate, right?
It does. I mean, there's a way in which when we were doing it, they were selling, there was $4.50 approximately wholesale. People were selling them to anywhere from $6. In New York, you can go higher, so people were selling it for $7.99, and they were still, I was really shocked, like, wow, people are paying $8 for this bag of chips. Because it is seen as a gourmet chip, and it's seen as something that's much healthier because it's a raw living food. So yeah, you have to play with those price points, but what happens is that once we kind of create volume, and we can buy our inventory at lower cost because we have a higher volume, that really brings the cost down.
So I'm confused. You did your testing in New York
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yes, I'm here. That was a choice our family made because my husband is faculty here now. So I was out there doing, and I realized early on that we were going to be just using it as a test market.
So I'm a little bit confused too because it doesn't make any sense to me why you're doing pesto and the chips because they're two different processes, two different non-shelf stable and shelf stable. There are probably a couple different paths to market that don't make a lot of sense because if you're leveraging the food broker system, you need to get into retail. You can't get the coverage you want in small stores. You probably could with the kale chips because you have a longer period of time to do it, but then your cost of sales is dramatic. I mean, delivery of a small number of bag products doesn't make sense.
Right, one of the big barriers, and you saw the distribution cost and the direct labor cost. The majority of that is our distribution. We do run into a problem there on that side.
So I appreciate you did a lot of market research, but I think the presentation was way too heavy in general market research and not specific enough in the path of the go-to-market, which you should have spent time, especially if you have a product and you do do have some decent market research to go to a Whole Foods and spend all your time trying to get into Whole Foods?
Well, what we have found is that we were really trying to build our base because with the Whole Foods, we've done that research. I mean, they have very specific numbers that you have to meet, right? And if you don't meet those within a week or two, you're off of their shelves. And so the idea is that we would really start building our base because we found that there really was a strong need for our product. And the reason why we chose, what is different about us is that we're using kale as the base for our products. And we will move into other superfoods as a base for our products. And so the kale chips, there are 3 flavors of the kale chips, so we can expand there. So there's a way to penetrate the market and still come in with like different items that were kale based.
I guess my question is more direct. How do you do that in small numbers in a massively distributed customer base? You can't product breadth when you don't have any depth. So I guess I'm calling bullshit. Answer that in a different way that makes sense to me.
Okay.
You have to go to a small.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that you can do that. I mean, I think that the reality is that we can, there are different processing, so I think that you can have different ways in which you're processing, right? So you have a force that's processing the pestos, a force that's processing the kale chips, and we've done that research so that we can roll out which, in the Dallas Metro
I'm
Pest.
not talking about processing.
Okay.
I'm talking about selling.
Okay,
We're talking about a single product. I've already shot the pesto.
okay.
Yeah, so what you're trying to say is how can we turn it on its head and just do one product? Yeah.
Or,
Keep
once
going.
you decide on one product, it's about volume, right?
Right.
How do you get to those volumes? How do you actually reach those customers? Food distribution is very specific. Have you guys talked to specialty food distributors? There's several.
Yes, I've started having meetings with some of like the actual small food producers as well to create those relationships. Because right now the food producers, they won't touch you until you have some kind of show that you can show that people want your product, right? So they don't really want to engage in these conversations unless we have some track record that shows, okay, you're already in 25 stores. I'm seeing, then I'm going to be willing to take the risk on you. And that is something that we have found, right? So for us, it is about actually showing the proof in the pudding and saying that people do want our products. We're in these stores, and yeah, it is going to take that legwork for us to get to those stores. And we're willing to do that as we were willing to do it in New York. We were testing. And once we can build that case, they're willing to engage with us on a level of, yes, we can take you on. Because those, you're right, I mean, those numbers are high. Those numbers are definitely high that they want you to meet. And I feel like we can do that, given the track record that we have had, that once people try them, so that we're doing the in-store demonstrations, that we're doing that kind of target marketing, that we're doing support for the stores once they're in the stores.
How did you determine the recipes for the products?
You know, I come from like a long line of people who are really great chefs. And so what I found is I actually started this because my children had pulled some kale chips off of the shelf. And I was always really into eating healthy. And I was vegan for many years, and I had an allergy with gluten. So what ended up happening was that I tried these, but they had cashews, and for kids, you're really not supposed to give them when they're really young. So we tried them, they liked them, and the bag was gone in 10 minutes. And I realized, like, oh my God, they're eating vegetables as a snack. Like, I would love for this to continue. And so I just started tinkering. I had a dehydrator at the house. I was a total foodie. And I had a dehydrator, so I started tinkering with a recipe. And that took about a month of fine-tuning a recipe. And what I realized is that there was a point in time in New York where we were running against barriers because they wouldn't allow me to do it as a cottage industry in my house, right? It has to be another facility. So I actually almost gave it up until I went, we had some Valley, there was a local farm preschool, and I took my kids to the school, and I took out, my daughter asked for the kale chips, and I started giving her some, and so the moms are looking, and there's about like 20 kids, and all of a sudden I was like, sure, you guys can try them. The little kids were literally not listening to the story that was happening to try to get the kale chips. And like all of the mothers were like, oh my God, these are vegetables, and people just started ordering. I mean, so it just kind of started from there that I realized I really had something that especially mothers wanted to feed their kids. You know, so I think that there's another angle where you can really kind of do some marketing for mothers with children, because that's something you want your kids to eat is more vegetables.
Yeah, we probably have time for one more quick question if anyone has one.
No, I just actually, cool idea. I like it. I think the trend that you are trying to piggyback here is on the healthy foods that are in the snack category, and that's a very strong growing market. I'm not as experienced in food distribution or as knowledgeable as Joel is, more in the medical industry, but it is a machine. I absolutely agree, and it's the same in medical devices. And the question is, how do you get in there if you're really going for the big distribution, for the big kahuna? I agree with Joel on the pest loss transfer to one is, I couldn't kind of realize which one. I'm glad to hear it's a 1-year shelf life for chips. That's phenomenal. That's much more than I thought. There'd be a couple of questions on liability maybe that I would, if I'd invest, I'd ask you. And how can we be sure that this stuff doesn't get moldy or something? How do we assure the public? Because you can throw anything out there and sell it as health food. I'm also convinced that there are new risks we're introducing too. So we want to leave it there. But overall, I just think that's a real core.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that our processing addresses that, because that was my concern. Where when you're cutting corners with the processing, I think you run the risk of mold if you're not fully dehydrating, right? I mean, if there's any ounce of liquid in there, that is going to create mold. And that was just not something that we experienced with our products because we were so committed to a processing time that really created a good product. So thank you so much.